Hi there, I'm Alethea. I built a multi-million-dollar company in total silence. No co-founders, no family backing, no fanfare. Just me, a second-hand laptop, and nights no one saw. But when the success showed up, so did they. Suddenly, my mother had debts under my name. My sister posed as my business partner. And the rest of them? They sat me down at dinner with legal papers, asking for a slice of a company they once told me was a waste of time. And that's not even the worst part. How do you fight back when it's your own blood setting the trap? The screen door creaked behind me as I stepped into my mother's house, the air thick with something unsaid. Cedar Park hadn't changed much. Same cracked driveway, same fake welcome mat, but something in me had. She offered tea like we hadn't ignored each other for 6 weeks. I declined. "Still acting like you're too good for a cup from your own mama?" she said, eyes sharp under drawn-on brows. I forced a smile. "Just tired. Long day." "Too tired for family?" Her tone slid in like a blade wrapped in velvet. I sat on the edge of the couch, trying not to sink too far into memories. The old clock ticked behind me, louder than it should have been. As she disappeared into the kitchen, I reached for my phone and realized my charger was nearly dead. I asked if she had one, and she waved toward the hall drawer. I opened it, and everything shifted. Buried under random papers was a crisp envelope from Sunview Bank. My name, my address, a second mortgage. I scanned the first few lines. My signature. The loan was active. It hit like ice in the gut. I checked my credit score on my phone with shaking fingers. A new account. A debt I hadn't created. My own mother had used my identity, and I hadn't even known. When she walked back in, tea in hand, I was already rehearsing how to keep my voice calm. "You refinanced the house," I said flatly, "under my name." Her face didn't change much. She sipped her tea. "And? I figured it'd be better for both of us." "Without asking me? I gave you life. The least you can do is help keep a roof over my head." That tone. It hadn't changed since I was 25 and asked for a loan to start my company. Just $5,000 to cover my first 3 months of rent. She'd scoffed back then. "You're not some tech genius, Alethea. You're a receptionist with big dreams and no backup plan." She didn't believe in what I was building then. And now that it had worked, she just took what she felt entitled to. I stood up, slow and steady. My heart was racing, but my face stayed composed. "I'm not your safety net. You don't get to steal from me and pretend it's love." Her smile dropped. "Oh, here we go. The big CEO who thinks she's better than the woman who raised her." I didn't flinch. "No, just the daughter who finally sees you clearly." As I stepped outside, dusk had crept in. The street looked quiet, but inside everything was loud. I didn't know what I'd do next, but I knew I'd never come back here the same. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't answer, but something in my gut told me this was only the beginning. I drove home in silence. The usual hum of traffic blurred into the background, my mind stuck on the calm cruelty in my mother's voice. By the time I pulled into the garage and stepped into my apartment, the sky had turned completely dark. I dropped my keys in the bowl near the door and didn't bother turning on more than one lamp. Some nights, soft light was enough. My phone buzzed again, vibrating across the kitchen counter. Aaron T. My heart skipped. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. I hesitated, then picked up. "Hey!" Her voice crackled through. "I didn't want to assume anything, but did you partner with your sister on something recently?" I blinked. "No. Why?" "She said you two launched a new fund inside Atlas Revive. I sent her $20,000 last week. It was Venna, right?" The floor under me tilted slightly. "You wired her money?" "Yeah. She said she was co-founder, showed me the pitch deck. It looked legit. She mentioned you by name. I just wanted to double-check before wiring the next transfer." My stomach tightened. "Don't send another $1." "Wait, what?" She lied. Venna's never been part of my company. After we hung up, I sat at the dining table, opened my laptop, and searched my company domain. A second domain popped up, atlasrevive.biz, a perfect fake. I found the email Aaron forwarded, Venna's official message, signed as co-founder and strategy director. Even worse, the deck she'd used mirrored phrases I'd written in confidence. Ideas I'd only ever stored in one place. The old laptop. The one she'd borrowed when she crashed on my couch in 2022. I remember feeling bad for her then. Divorced, broke, sleeping in her car. I'd let her stay a few weeks thinking family meant something. Turns out she'd used the time to mine everything I had. I scrolled through my files feeling like a fool. She'd known for years I was the one behind Atlas Revive, and she kept it quiet, not to protect me, but to wait, for the right moment. I wanted to call her, to scream, but I didn't. I opened a message, typed, "You lied, you stole. I'm done." Then I hit backspace. Slowly, deliberately. Instead, I texted Aaron, "It's a scam. Cut contact." After closing my laptop, I walked to the window. The skyline blinked back at me. I'd stayed silent for too long. My mother crossed a line. Now my sister had followed. Let them come. I wasn't hiding anymore. Sleep didn't come easy that weekend. I kept cycling through what-ifs and could-have-seens, but none of them dulled the fact that my sister had used me, and my mother justified it. Monday came fast. I needed to clear my head and reset focus. As I stepped into Atlas Revive's lobby, Kaya was already waiting by the elevator. Her face held that tight, clipped tension I recognized all too well. Something was wrong. "We need to talk," she said. Back in my office, she closed the door. Jamie from Ops mentioned a weird call he got Friday afternoon, somebody posing as a recruiter, but it didn't feel like an interview. I narrowed my eyes. What did they ask? About who reports directly to you, whether there's a silent partner. Jamie said they kept hinting that he must know the real boss. My stomach dropped. Did we pull metadata? Kaya nodded. Burner number, but we traced the SIM registration to Venna Grant. I didn't even flinch, just leaned back in my chair. She's digging now. And she's sloppy, Kaya added. I turned to my laptop and scanned employee records, IP logs, off-hours access. A few red flags popped up, but nothing critical yet. Then an alert hit from legal, a letter. I clicked it open. Warehouse lease confirmation, co-signed, Alethea McCoy. My name, tied to a commercial lease in South Austin. I hadn't signed anything like that in years, but the signature was mine, lifted from a previous document I'd co-signed for Luther. Back then, he just needed help opening a line of credit. I hadn't thought twice. I reached out to our compliance lead. The facility had just been flagged for shipping irregularities, counterfeit inventory, unpaid customs reports. And now, my name was on the paperwork. I stared at the screen. How many ways have they buried me in their mess? Kaya didn't answer. She didn't need to. I asked her to run a full audit on any document Venna or Luther had ever touched while inside my orbit. Small favors, loan signatures, shared logins. I wanted it all on the table. They're treating me like I'm still asleep, I said, voice low. Kaya crossed her arms. You planning to wake them up? I didn't smile. I called Arden, my attorney, and said, We're done being quiet. Send cease and desist letters to both of them. I want everything documented. After I hung up, I sat for a long minute, staring out at the city skyline. They think I'm still the girl who stayed quiet, I said to myself. Let's show them how wrong they are. By Wednesday, the storm had gone quiet, but I'd lived long enough to know calm doesn't mean safety. It means someone's planning something. I stepped out of the elevator at the Atlas Revive lobby, just as a tall man in khakis and a pressed blue shirt was scanning the company's wall directory, a little too intently. He caught my eye and smiled. Big building, he said. Figured I'd get a head start on understanding the layout before my pitch meeting. I nodded once. And who are you meeting? He fumbled with his phone. Derek, from, consulting? We didn't have a Derek in consulting. I let it slide, made a mental note. His visitor badge checked out. Nothing about him triggered alarms. Yet. Back upstairs, I ran into Kaya by the break room. We've got someone on site I don't recognize. Says he's a client but keeps poking around. She blinked. Is it a guy with light brown loafers and a watch he keeps adjusting like a nervous tick? That's the one. Within 10 minutes, she had pulled security footage. The same man had been in our building 2 days ago, unlogged, talking to an intern from research. That intern had been one of the same people Venna had targeted weeks earlier. We dug into his ID, cross-referenced the email he used to confirm his visit. It traced back to a freelance investigative reporter. His last story? The invisible founders behind billion-dollar brands. My chest tightened. I pulled up the press queue and froze mid-scroll. He'd requested a tour through an anonymous investor lead, a funnel Venna had full access to last year. Everything fit too well. If he went public now, before I was ready, I could lose more than control. I could lose leverage with investors, partners, employees who'd built their careers not knowing who they were really working for. I issued a silent halt on all media communications. No tours, no press. Every employee with clearance got a legal notice to stay off social media regarding anything tied to leadership. Still, whispers started. Slack channels got vague. One post read, "Pretty sure our admin is way too good at negotiating seven-figure deals." I walked the halls like nothing had shifted. I smiled, nodded, gave updates. But inside I was writing a different kind of speech, one that opened with, "You deserve the truth." By early evening, I stopped by Kaya's office to debrief. Her door was slightly open, and I caught her voice mid-sentence. "No, she hasn't cracked yet. But if we don't act soon, the story'll get buried behind someone else's scandal." Then I heard it. My mother's voice. "She can play queen all she wants. That company wouldn't exist without me. You get me that spotlight, before she erases us completely." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just Venna. This was strategy, a family ambush in slow motion. Friday afternoon, the sky above Austin looked clear, but the inbox on my screen said otherwise. Kaya walked in, holding her tablet like it was contaminated. "We just got this." It was a forwarded message from one of our oldest clients, Everson Holdings. The subject line was neutral, pausing current initiatives pending review. But the wording inside was anything but passive. They were stepping back, until reputational clarity could be confirmed at the executive level. No details. Just enough to freeze movement. And right below that, an attached email thread. The original sender, Carlene McCoy. It was dressed up in motherly concern, signed, "With love, from a mother who wants to see her daughter thrive." But every sentence was poison. "She's always been secretive, withdrawn since childhood. I've watched her isolate herself, bury herself in work. Even family can't reach her. There have been concerning episodes, emotionally unstable choices, questionable alliances." It was veiled sabotage, deliberate, designed to make me sound unfit, unstable, and unworthy of trust. I didn't scream. I didn't shake. I read it once, then read it again, then forwarded it to Arden. "Get me a copy of every client it was sent to," I said. Kaya was already ahead of me. 6, all strategic, all high volume. I leaned back in my chair and took a breath that tasted like acid. "You think this was just emotional?" I asked. She's trying to rip holes in the ship while smiling from the shore. Later that afternoon, Kaya returned with a flash drive. "You'll want to see this." It was a copy of the financial statements Carlene used to justify the stepfather's debt she claimed I needed to help pay. I'd heard the story for years, how he'd left her drowning in bills. But the statements told a different story. There was no debt. The loans were all posthumous, taken out in his name using falsified documents. And the money? Gone into speculative stocks, high-interest furniture, and cosmetic procedures. She'd used his name as a shield, then used mine as a ladder. I typed the message slowly, clearly. "If you contact my partners again, if you attempt to drag my name through the dirt, understand this. I will not come back quietly. I will dismantle everything you're using to pretend you still have power." I hit send. No reply. Not a single keystroke, which meant only one thing. She was already planning her next move. The invitation came Saturday night, dressed in fake civility. "Let's just eat like a family," Venna texted. Carlene followed with a call. "Sunday dinner. No drama, sweetheart. Just food." They really thought I was still naive enough to believe in peace offerings. I showed up Sunday evening with clean lines and sharper instincts. A tailored black dress, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. Under my arm was a manila folder, my own version of hospitality. Carlene greeted me with a tight smile and a scent that tried too hard. Venna was already seated at the table, glass of wine in hand like this was some brunch spread, not a battlefield. And Luther, of course, still clinging to that cheap cologne and expensive entitlement. The three of them sat waiting, like a board of directors ready to pitch. On my plate, a folder. The real entree. "What's this?" I asked, though I already knew. Carlene touched my wrist like she still had that right. "A proposal. We figured after everything, maybe it's time you share. Just a little." Venna leaned in. 20%, Alethea. Not control. Just recognition. I opened the folder and read aloud. "Equity in exchange for emotional support over the years." I looked at them one by one. "So love now comes with a spreadsheet?" Luther smirked. "You wouldn't be where you are without us." I smiled, then reached into my own bag and slid a second folder across the table. "This is a cease and desist," I said, voice steady. "It includes transcripts, copies of slanderous emails, and notarized evidence of attempted fraud." Venna's face drained. Carlene's froze in practiced calm. Luther chuckled, until I added, "You're named in 3 of those incidents." No one spoke. I stood slowly. "You've been stealing my story, piece by piece, thinking I'd never claim it back." Carlene blinked. "We're your family." "No, you're trespassers, and you've exhausted my grace." I left the contract on the table and turned. My heels struck the floor like punctuation marks. Full stop. Outside, Arden leaned on the hood of his car. "So?" I met his eyes. "Burn the masks," I said. "We're done pretending." By sunrise, the silence around me felt different. Not passive, not manipulative, just still, like the quiet just before a microphone goes hot. At 9:04 a.m., Kaya walked into my office with a fresh folder in one hand and an energy I hadn't seen since the early days of the company. "They leaked it," she said, "but not what they think." I looked at the email she slid across the table. An anonymous message, traced back to a burner registered to Luther. Again. This time, it accused a relative of the executive team of manipulating insider data to spike stock prices on several acquisitions. Vague, but dangerous. The thing is, it was partially true. Kaya and Arden had spent the last week compiling timelines, trade records, metadata, everything Luther had quietly weaponized from years ago when I was still too trusting. They sent it to the SEC by noon. No red tape, just evidence. By 2 p.m., I was in a glass conference room being interviewed by a Forbes correspondent. I told them everything. I laid it out, not with tears or self-pity, but with precision. How I built Atlas Revive in silence. How I watched my family minimize me to dust. How I let them, until I didn't. When the article went live that night, the headline wasn't subtle. "The secret CEO who outsmarted her entire family." My inbox blew up. So did our investor portal, but not with panic, with congratulations. Within hours, Venna posted a shaky video online. "I've always supported Alethea. We built this. Together." The comments ripped her to shreds. "Girl, you forged her name on a fake pitch deck. Supporting someone doesn't include trying to steal their job. Sit down, Venna. You played yourself." Meanwhile, Carlene stopped returning neighborhood invites. Her gossip emails had gone viral, turned into memes, and Luther subpoenaed. As I walked through the executive floor the next morning, for the first time, my team looked at me, not as the woman who took notes in the corner, but the one who built the building they stood in. I opened the main conference room door. Everyone stood, some clapped. I raised a hand to stop it. "Let's get back to work," I said, then paused, because this was just the beginning. It had rained the night before, and the sidewalk up to my mother's porch was still damp. I stood outside for a few seconds longer than necessary, not because I was hesitant, but because I wanted to remember this moment. How it felt to walk into something not to beg, not to fix, but to finish. Carlene opened the door halfway, like she had been waiting but didn't want to admit it. "I figured you'd show up," she said flatly. "I'm not here for closure," I replied. "I'm here for clarity." She let me in, silently. The house looked smaller than it used to. Or maybe I had just finally outgrown it. I stayed standing in the living room, eyes scanning familiar picture frames. My 8th grade spelling bee photo still hung near the kitchen. She never made it to that competition. Said her back hurt. "When I needed $5,000, you told me I was chasing fantasies," I started. "You said no one in this family had time for that." She didn't respond. "And when I built a company worth more than everything in this house combined, You said I got lucky. I didn't know you'd actually pull it off, she muttered, brushing invisible lint off her sleeve. No, I said. You just didn't care to believe I could. There was a long pause. Her eyes darted to the floor. I let the silence stay. I didn't need your money. I needed you to believe in me, once, just once. She looked up. You always acted like I owed you something. I never wanted your money, I repeated. But I won't let you weaponize your absence anymore. I handed her a sealed envelope. Effective immediately, you're off my insurance. No more monthly assistance. No more emergencies. This is the end of the line. Her jaw clenched. You've always been colder than I could understand. I met her gaze. No, I just stopped setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. There was nothing else to say. I walked out without looking back. Not victorious, not broken, just done. That night, as I unpacked my bag at home, Kaya handed me an envelope. No name on the front. Just a messy script I'd recognize anywhere. Inside a folded page. You built it without me. But maybe now, you'll stop needing me to understand. There was no apology, no signature. But for the first time, I didn't need either. 3 weeks passed, and the city moved like it always did. Fast, ruthless, indifferent. But something inside me had shifted. The TEDx stage wasn't a battlefield. It was a platform, and I wasn't there to wage war. I was there to lay down the sword. I stepped up to the mic, adjusted my blazer, and looked out into the crowd. All I could see were lights, but I imagined every woman who ever sat in a boardroom and bit her tongue, every daughter who carried both the dream and the burden. My name is Alethea McCoy. I'm the founder and CEO of Atlas Revive. For a long time, no one knew that but me, and the people who tried to take it from me. I spoke for 15 minutes, about silence as armor, about invisibility as strategy, about betrayal not as the end, but the beginning of clarity. When I stepped off stage, I didn't feel exposed. I felt visible. Later that night, I sat in my apartment. The city sparkled below. Kaya had left early. Arden had checked in briefly, congratulated me, then jumped on another case. For once, the quiet didn't feel empty. Venna had lost custody temporarily. Child welfare cited instability and manipulation. Luther was under official SEC scrutiny. Carlene had quietly moved to a rental in Brenham. No press coverage, no scandal, just absence. And that was its own kind of sentence. I opened my laptop. Dozens of emails, but one caught me. A message from a young founder in Baltimore. Thank you, it read, for showing me we don't need permission to lead. I exhaled slowly. That was the legacy. Not revenge, not noise, just proof. I walked over to my bookshelf, opened a small wooden box, and slipped my mother's letter inside. I labeled it in thick black ink, not pain, just proof. Then my phone buzzed. Miss McCoy? The CEO of Thompson Electronics is downstairs. He's early. I looked in the mirror, tucked a curl behind my ear, and straightened my jacket. I built all of this without them. And now? I get to build whatever comes next. They called it revenge. But for me, it was release. Some battles, you win by walking away. Others by refusing to hide anymore. But the hardest ones? You win by healing without applause. If there's one thing this journey taught me, it's that silence can protect you, but it can also cage you. I thought I was playing it smart by keeping my success quiet, and maybe I was. But in that quiet, people filled in the blanks with their own stories. Stories where I was the villain, the ungrateful daughter, the easy target. I built a company, yes. But more than that, I built a spine, and no one gets to borrow it for free. To anyone watching this, maybe you're the black sheep in a family that keeps rewriting your narrative. Maybe you've been told you dream too big, ask too much, or owe people just for becoming more than they expected. Hear this, you don't owe your silence to anyone, and you don't need permission to be powerful. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. Really, if this story hit home, drop a 1, or tell me where you're watching from. If it didn't resonate, I still want to hear your take. Was there something you would have handled differently? Let's talk about it. And hey, if you believe stories like this matter, if you want more real-life stories about strength, family, and standing up for yourself, Don't forget to subscribe, hit that button, join the conversation, and I'll see you in the next story. Stay bold, stay grounded, and remember, peace isn't given, it's chosen.